Something strange happens when you walk through a 600-year-old door. The building around it may have been rebuilt 3 times. The village may have changed religions, rulers, or entire languages, yet the door still swings open like it's been waiting for you. And here's the twist. The secret that kept these doors alive wasn't magic, and it wasn't luck. It was a survival technique hidden in plain sight, perfected long before power tools, modern hinges, or engineered lumber existed. This is the story of a medieval construction trick so clever and so durable that it kept ordinary wooden doors working for centuries. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at a doorway the same way again. Medieval builders weren't thinking about aesthetics first. Their world was full of rain that soaked through everything, winters that cracked wood open, and daily life that slammed doors 10 times harder than anyone does today. A flimsy design simply wouldn't cut it. So carpenters leaned into a technique that let doors flex, shift, and recover, almost like they were alive. At the heart of the system was a simple principle. Wood will always move. It swells when it's wet, shrinks when it's dry, and warps when pulled in one direction for too long. Fighting that movement was a losing battle. But working with it? That's where the genius shows up. Medieval doors weren't flat panels like the ones you find in modern houses. They were engineered layers of planks, arranged vertically, held together with a diagonal brace that created an unbreakable triangle. That triangle is why a medieval door could weigh as much as a person and still swing smoothly centuries later. Here's where things get clever. The diagonal brace wasn't decoration. It was the secret engine. When someone pushed the door, the force travelled down the diagonal, spreading the impact across the entire frame instead of stressing one point. That meant less cracking, less sagging, and far less warping. Think of it like carrying a heavy pack on your back versus holding it with one arm. Spread the load, and suddenly everything gets easier. But medieval builders didn't stop there. The diagonal brace was always placed running from the hinge side up to the opposite corner. That angle kept gravity from dragging the whole door down into the hinges. Centuries pass, and the door never droops. The triangle was doing silent work, day and night, holding everything in alignment. Most modern homeowners meet a sagging door at least once in their life. Medieval carpenters solved that problem so completely that their work still holds its shape after 600 years. That's not just craftsmanship, that's survival engineering. Another detail that kept these ancient doors alive was the choice to use wooden pegs instead of metal nails. It sounds simple, maybe even old-fashioned, but it was a stroke of genius. Metal reacts to moisture far faster than wood. It rusts, it expands, it contracts unevenly. All of that movement puts stress on the wood around it. Over decades, that stress can tear a door apart from the inside. Wooden pegs, on the other hand, expand and contract at nearly the same rate as the boards they hold. That means the joints stay tight without crushing the surrounding material. It's a slow, steady partnership instead of a fight. This is why so many medieval doors remain solid, while their nails, if any were used, crumbled long ago. Even better, these pegs were often cut slightly oversized. Carpenters hammered them into the joints while the wood was still green. As the door dried over the first few months, the pegs locked themselves in place. The whole structure tightened naturally, like a self-healing mechanism built right into the material. Materials mattered too. Medieval builders weren't guessing which trees to cut. Oak, chestnut and sometimes pine were chosen for very specific reasons. Oak stood up to humidity. Chestnut resisted rot. Pine handled rapid movement without breaking. Doors weren't built from random scraps. They were built from tested survival materials that matched the local climate. In wetter regions, oak dominated. In drier ones, pine performed better. A door wasn't just a barrier. It was a climate-adapted shield, engineered for the exact environment it would stand in. That understanding wasn't written in a textbook. It was passed down from master to apprentice, carved into every project through centuries of trial and error. When you see a 600-year-old door today, you're also seeing the success of that long experiment. Medieval doors weren't thin by any stretch. Some were 3 or 4 inches thick. Many were layered like armour, built with multiple boards, stacked and interlocked to handle war, weather and everyday life. These layers did more than add strength. They acted like insulation. They muffled sound. They slowed down fire. They stopped moisture from soaking all the way through. And because the boards were set slightly apart to allow natural airflow, the door could dry itself after storms instead of rotting from within. This isn't just durability. It's design shaped by survival instincts. Every board had a job, every brace mattered, every peg held history in place. The door alone wasn't the masterpiece. The hinges were just as important. Instead of the small metal hinges we use today, medieval doors often hung on long, strap-style hinges that stretched almost the entire width of the door. They acted like skeletal arms, distributing weight instead of forcing a single point to handle the load. On heavier doors, the hinges weren't even metal. They were carved stone pivots, or wooden pins that sat in sockets at the top and bottom of the frame. That design removed all lateral stress and let the door swing on a secure vertical axis. Even if the wood swelled or shifted, the hinge system adapted without snapping. That's why many medieval hinges still move. They weren't resisting the world. They were cooperating with it. With all this ingenuity, it's no surprise the method survived centuries. What's fascinating is how many rural communities continued using the technique long after factories and modern carpentry took over. When you build something that lasts half a millennium, the wisdom doesn't disappear overnight. Even today, survival builders, off-grid homesteads and historical reconstruction experts study these medieval doors. Not because they look ancient, but because they solve problems modern buildings still struggle with. The triangle keeps doors from sagging. The pegs eliminate metal corrosion. The wood choices resist rot and moisture. The layered boards add insulation. The hinge systems reduce long-term stress. Everything was built for endurance. This was medieval engineering, but not for castles or royalty. This was for everyday people who needed solutions that could withstand weather, war, and time. You know, the real takeaway isn't that medieval carpenters were skilled, though they absolutely were. It's that they understood the natural behaviour of materials and designed around it. They didn't force wood to act like something it's not. Instead, they let it move. They partnered with it. That mindset is perfect for survivalists and modern builders alike. When resources are limited and modern convenience isn't around to bail us out, the smartest design is the one that works with nature instead of fighting it. That's why this 600-year-old technique still matters. It's a blueprint for resilience. If you enjoy stories like this, where forgotten skills still have something to teach us today, make sure you stick with Legacy of Survival. Hit the like button, share the video with someone who appreciates clever old-world engineering, and subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive into history's most durable secrets. There's a lot more wisdom waiting behind old doors. Let's open it together.